Good afternoon and welcome to session 5 of day 4 of Streaming Media East Connect 2021. This is our 4th and biggest virtual conference yet. It won't be our last. We're doing another Streaming Media Connect in August, and there will be more information available about that soon, but we have already begun planning for our return to in-person events with Streaming Media West in Huntington Beach the first week of November. You can go to the website that Steve is going to paste into the chat right now to find out more. And if you're interested in speaking, the call for speakers is open. If you're interested in sponsoring, there's information about that there as well. As always, all of our sessions will be available in the archives on Streaming Media's YouTube channel. Steve's also going to post that link in the chat. Or you can just go to streamingmedia.com and look for the videos tab up top and click conference videos. Couple of housekeeping notes. We will leave the chat open throughout this Zoom, but if you have questions for our panelists, we ask that you put them in the Q&A tab. That just makes it a little easier for our moderator, Anthony, to keep track of them as they come in. And Anthony will take those questions from the audience and pose them to our panelists when it fits into the conversation. So with that, let me thank our diamond sponsor, Signient, for helping to make all of Streaming Media East Connect possible. And we have a brief video message from them.
When the director calls action.
And action.
When the game is on.
Pick it up, it's good.
Or it's time to save the universe again. Media Shuttle is there. Trusted by more than 25,000 media companies, Media Shuttle delivers, making it easy and secure to send any size file anywhere fast. The journey begins with Media Shuttle portals, customized and branded for any project and designed to be so easy, your end users will love it. All while giving operations teams complete control through a simple yet powerful admin interface. Add users, set permissions, customize file delivery specs, and report on all activity. Blast off with proprietary acceleration technology. Media Shuttle moves your content anywhere in the internet-connected world at hyper speeds. Along the way, your files are protected. Our commitment to enterprise-grade security has made Media Shuttle a preferred tool with Hollywood studios, major sports leagues, broadcasters, and more. With Media Shuttle, your files are never handed over to Signient. File movement is orchestrated between the end user's workstation and your storage, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Your IT team simply provisions your storage, connecting it to the Media Shuttle cloud service, and Signient handles the rest. Get started on your Media Shuttle journey today. A journey without limits.
And I would also like to thank the sponsor of this session, EEG Enterprises, for helping make this discussion about remote production possible. I'd like to introduce Anthony Burokas, who's going to talk about just that. You know, in the last year, it seems like remote production has advanced about 5 years, and we've got a terrific group of panelists to talk about remote live streaming. And so, Anthony, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and we have a fantastic panel today. I think everyone has, in the streaming world, has, as Eric says, jumped ahead several years because of COVID and the need for remote. So without further ado, let me bring on our panel. First, John from EEG, Corey from LiveX, Joe from MediaMonks, and Jeff from Pizzazz. So you can all turn your cameras on. And I think realistically, taking a pulse, just the activity that's been going on, before COVID, we were advancing at a certain rate of speed. And I think when we were talking to people about the value of remote production, it seemed to be a harder sell. And then once COVID hit and everybody was stuck, but they still needed to produce, and sports teams shut down, but then they realized they needed to continue to do something. And the show must go on, so to speak. I think they realized that there was a way to do it, and they started to listen. So let me start with Corey. How did you find COVID change the world for you?
A ton of ways, and a ton of ways not. It kind of proved that we were doing the right thing and had the right approach to a lot of what we had been doing. I mean, 3 years ago, this August, we had done the USGA championship from Pebble Beach, the juniors, with a full SRT multicam workflow, full broadcast audio back. I remember it distinctly, like hearing from my office this like television sound quality happening, and I was like, are we really transporting like all of this video and audio in sync from like 3,500 miles away? And yeah, to your point, I can distinctly remember trying to convince clients, no. You can save like $200,000 on your current fitness studio by bringing everything to a facility, and and nobody was really buying. It's just very different. But we did what was kind of crazy this year, and I had it on my list as Zoom as an input, web conferences and input. This right here, the acceleration you're talking about, that's all that's really happened. A huge, ginormous acceleration. It's as if the Eye of Sauron itself has focused itself on live streaming and remote production now, and we're all here at this moment.
Jeff, what do you, how do you see the transition from, as we were saying, before COVID, like a year before COVID, was it a hard sell? And then here we are a year after COVID. Is it sort of like everybody is like, you were right? You got to unmute yourself. Unmute.
One of these days we'll figure out these things.
There we
Apologize. Just like Corey, we've been pushing this for years. We've been using it ourselves in our own productions for probably almost 3.5 years now. And it was just one of those things when COVID hit and everybody was like, hey, look, well, we can do remotely. I'm like, okay, but been there, done that. What do you need help with? And so it allowed us to really jump in really quick and use the methods and the workflows that we already developed and have been basically tweaking for years. We do.
Jeff is mobile right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, maybe circle back to him.
So there a lot of
Yikes.
Yep.
Maybe come back to him, Anthony.
All right, Corey, we need you to send a kit over to Jeff. Well, when he comes back, he can't hear us either. That's the thing. So he doesn't know we're continuing. John, let me have you speak to the fact that, yes, we can do remote, but at the same time, we still have to be compliant. And there's lots of broadcast destinations that require captioning.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I kind of would like to, I'd kind of be inclined to kind of piggyback off of what both Corey and Jeff said. You know, we were already doing a lot of this stuff in advance to COVID hitting with like some of the remote solutions we have, like our Falcon virtual RTMP encoder, and of course our Lexi automated captioning solution, you know, as well as solutions for like, solutions for like IP video with our Alta encoder that can sit in AWS. So, you know, we had a lot of these, you know, sort of remote closed captioning solutions already available, and they were popular among our users. But, you know, with the onset of COVID, you just saw this huge uptick in live streaming because, you know, events such as the one we're doing right now that would ordinarily be in person are now being live streamed. So, you know, you just had that across the board in like every space you can think of. You know, everything, you know, from major conferences to, you know, inquiries about people about, you know, say closed captioning a wedding, for example. So we were fortunate in that we had these solutions ready to go. I don't think we saw much of a change. We did see a change in demand because we saw like, you know, really a different reasoning for a lot of people wishing to do remote production. Not only because they were forced remote, but you had people who would like previously be, you know, probably much more inclined to use an on-prem solution, but, oh, well, I can't get anybody in my plant right now. So what remote options do you have? And just one more thing to add, you know, with all this remote production work, you know, it's really been a strain on actual live captioners. So with that, you know, you saw like really an uptick in demand for our automated captioning. And I think you saw that across the board.
Right now, and then the last aspect of doing things remotely, especially if you're trying to do things in the cloud, is being able to have control over those tools when you're not physically in front of the device. And Joe, explain to us what it is that you do.
Yeah, sure thing. I think I come at this from a slightly different angle because I initially was quite skeptical of remote production, and it was kind of my customers that dragged me into this. So when I wrote Central Control before joining MediaMonks, and it was just a bit of a lockdown project. And then when COVID hit and people needed to control, remote instances of production software, they realized that they could use Central Control to do this. And that was actually my lead to MediaMonks. They bought a couple of licenses, asked me to help on some shows. And it was over that period that I became convinced, this is the way to do it. And my mindset shifted entirely so much that I remember I was helping a buddy out on one of his jobs a few weekends ago, and I was just looking at, this was on-prem, and I was looking at this computer on the floor running vMix, and I was like, no, this is dangerous. Like, if that one machine goes out, that's the end of your show. But anyway, I do Central Control, which is a show control application which can be used to remotely control instances of vMix in the cloud or on-prem, as well as VisVector, NewTek TriCasters. In addition to that, I work at MediaMonks as the broadcast technical manager at EMEA, and we have been doing fully remote production since I think about the turn of the pandemic.
Yeah, when I did a panel earlier this week, and I basically called Central Control digital glue, to take this piece and stick it to this piece, and they're very far apart, but you really need them to work like they are physically connected, even though the physical may be 3,000 or even a whole planet apart.
Yep.
Corey, how do you, when you are building your studios and remote kits, what type of glue do you use to piece these things together?
I think we use a mix of, when I'm on the ground, we will typically use Dante for audio. We try to, and then we'll use SDI workflows, NDI workflows on the ground, and then get them in via SRT. So a lot of times we'll embed audio with Dante onto the SDI and then transport that as channels via SRT. We love SRT. I've been a huge backer of SRT since it first came out. Pretty much that, like, there was that OG NAB with NFL where the NFL was telling everybody how great SRT is with high vision. But yeah, I mean, SRT, Zoom, the Zoom farms, like we have a Zoom farm, we have a Zoom garden. We got, I mean, it's like, well, what are all the names? Like, I have so many different Zoom, like basically like server farms. Those are fun. Getting Zoom in and out, figuring out how to get it, to your point about the glue that holds stuff together. Like, how do you get your ClearComm into the cloud? How do you get your ClearComm into your virtualized vMix? How do you get your Unity, whatever you're using, right? Everybody's using stuff different. Like, the thing about us is we're really about best of breed, meaning like, I've always been the kind of person that there's not one solution, I'm not going to like just one booth for graphics or just one booth for audio. So I think that's really served us well as far as like, where we are right now in this acceleration. But yeah, SRT is that one thing that I think if we didn't have that, like when I was at Livestream 2010, that was my biggest complaint, was that there wasn't actually, besides RTMP, which is still like a weird way to do that, there wasn't really something you could just rely on over internet to travel at any kind of latency. And so a lot of things said they could do it. Like, I remember Teradek coming out the Cube with like MPEG TS, and then they had that over, and it never was like stable, and it's not a shit. I'm not crapping on Teradek, right? They're amazing. They make amazing products, but like, it was more the internet protocols. There really wasn't, until like Zixi came out in, 2011, 2012, there really wasn't anything that was like broadcast quality that you could transport reliably over the internet.
And just to clarify on that one point, relying on SRT, where do you fall in terms of latency versus reliability? Where do you put that you know, because I know it's an adjustable
I mean,
thing.
here's the thing about latency, okay? Like all of us that have been in the industry for over a decade understand this. Latency is it's a rabbit hole with multiple rabbit holes that has exponential rabbit holes inside of it, right? What are you trying to do? Start with that. So what we love about the on-prem versus the virtualization is because I can have two engineers on-prem and they can be what I call a latency hub. We can all agree that time exists in that on-prem solution, in that REMCR, whatever it is, right? That REMI. So now if time exists there, now I can go, okay, you're a TD, you're a director, you need to get WebRTC back. You need to get this program back. You need to get this. So it allows for this idea that you can make shows with human beings, which initially when the pandemic started, everybody was like, oh my God, I need to do more shows. So they were like, they had a TriCaster operator in their basement and they lost all the people that they had that made these beautiful shows, right? Because they relied on the one guy that we all know, which used to be me, but now isn't anymore. But you know, the TD, and it's all on their shoulders. And I don't think that's the right approach. So I think SRT gives you this ability to be like, all right, you stay at your house, but you can still, Glenn Weiss, when we did Democratic National Convention, there's this classic shot of Glenn Weiss, who's the world famous Tony Award and Oscar, or not an Oscar, but live director that does the Tonys, and he directed DNC, and he's literally sitting in his lounge, and that's largely because of SRT as a technology.
Jeff, you can hear us now?
Got you loud and clear.
We're talking about methodologies for getting that. We were talking about digital glue. You've got a source in one place and you're producing it in another place. What is the digital glue that you use to connect those two pieces?
Without a doubt, our biggest piece of glue, it's a bucket of glue, it's a gallon of glue, it's a barrel of glue, it's the Sienna processing engine. That in the cloud is just phenomenal. We love it. It's just so flexible to be able to send any input that you want to receive, whether it be SRT, LRT, RTMP, NDI for that matter, bring it into the processing engine, and then we make it happen whatever we need to do, embed, de-embed audio, add lower thirds, add graphics, add anything to the processing that needs to happen of that signal, and then send it back out to whether we use the inbuilt little 6-channel mixer that's in it, or we push that out to a VisVector Plus or even vMix or other even live stream studio sometimes, depending on the destination needs.
Interesting. And then when we were talking with Joe, obviously with his central control, do you find yourself using that as well to control in the cloud, or are you sort of doing your mixing on premise with machines that talk to the cloud, or how does that work?
Depends on the application. More and more though, we're doing every bit of the mixing in the cloud, and we are definitely using central control, several copies of that. It's fantastic software, and we use it a lot actually. But we do also use Skarhoy controllers, which are IP based already. So with a simple VPN tunnel into our cloud infrastructure or site to site, we can do the remote production off the Skarhoy panels very easily too. But it is something about, just grabbing like I carry around with me, grabbing a Stream Deck, plugging it into the computer, logging in, and you have the same functionality that if you were sitting at your office. It's amazing. We definitely, I would say probably 90% of the time work like that.
And then, for John, in terms of like, we're doing these shows and obviously they're going to broadcast, and there's, certain captioning requirements. What is the methodology for getting content to you and then from you back out to go to broadcast to the final destination?
Sure. I mean, we accept, all video formats in any of our encoders. So it's just really a question of, where do you want to embed the captions in your workflow? Are you playing an SDI before you're going to streaming? Because it's like, it's sort of a hybrid workflow where you're sending both, out to web and, to broadcast, or are you doing like purely a live stream? So it's really a question of, where in the workflow do you want your closed captions embedded? As far as, what's EEG's digital glue, so to speak, I mean, that would be our ICAP protocol. Those of you who are fortunate enough to be using EEG, know that all of our encoders leverage our ICAP protocol, which is just our proprietary solution for transporting audio to a live captioner or to our automated captioning solution, Lexi. So it looks completely the same on the captioner side, no matter what EEG encoder you're using or what video format you may be playing in.
If somebody needs to do multiple languages, is that one box or is that one box per language?
We can do 2 languages per box in SDI. We currently can encode up to 4 into a single RTMP stream. And as you know, I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record on these panels when I get to this next part. But really the issue with that is, there really aren't any web players out there at present that can decode more than 2 languages. So, the 4 is kind of redundant on our side in the RTMP stream. So to any player companies that may be watching, or any, people who are aspiring to develop a player, I think there's a pretty clear need for that right now, like a true multi-language streaming media player solution. I think I'm a little bit surprised that there isn't one already, but I'm not in the player business, so I can't really comment on the intricacies of that.
Yeah, and I think even YouTube, who had the ability at one point to have 4 streams, on one page and let the user switch between them, those technically were 4 video streams, but I know people who leverage that to send the same stream with 4 different languages attached to it, coming out of whatever production they're doing, and YouTube doesn't even do that anymore, as far as I'm aware. So
no, you're right,
really
Anthony.
limited.
They did Google I/O yesterday, all this week, and they had the accessibility player, and you were actually pulling each channel. It wasn't in the player.
So realistically, as John says, that last little piece is something that doesn't exist at this point, is what I'm hearing.
Well, you just have to do more. It just means more money for those of us that do a lot of productions, right? You just have to do more streams, more languages, more streams.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to send 5 streams for 5 languages to 5 players on 5 pages.
Yeah. That 5 players and 5 pages doesn't really make for a phenomenal viewer experience. Like far from.
Yeah. Okay. Let me look at some. We got some questions coming in. What's the best way to get your audio into your cloud production from multiple sources, including cloud-based Zoom meetings? Is cloud-only Dante possible now? Corey, I think you mentioned Dante, so you might be able to speak to that.
I wish I could. Somebody tell me that Cloud Dante works, because I want to use it immediately. I was also hoping that Clearcom, they just came out with Panel IC, which is like their computer version. And literally on their webinar, I was like so trolling them. I was like, hey, can I put this in the cloud? Because that would be awesome, because then I could do an LQ and I could do Dante on that box, and then, whatever. We use it on-prem. We use Dante to get for a Zoom or for like mix minus and things like that. It is very helpful. We also, like for Zoom input, we use vMix as that, but audio is that one thing where if you really want to do high end, like we have used Unity Connect before. If you have 2 Unity Connects between each other, you can do Dante, and then you can use Unity Connect to transport the audio at very high quality, and you can remix off of that. Also, a way that we've proven was with SRT and multisync. You can basically embed the channels onto SDI, then you decode, and you can actually spit that back out and remix it, and it sounds fairly good. The quality holds up, but it's a pain in the butt. I don't know. I'm here for that question. Someone tell me what is the solution here?
Joe, you have the answer?
I think so. We have been using on our NBA show, we're doing we did 10 games of the NBA season in 4K VR, but for audio, we're doing the video in the Vector, VizRT Vector, which is it's a cloud-based production suite. And they actually, with that, they give you these VST plugins, and they are absolutely phenomenal. So we're using a DAW called Reaper running in an AWS virtual machine, and we can just add as many channel strips as we like. And then we just add in, on each channel, we get to add in the receiver. And then on the output buses, there's another plugin that sends it so that it takes in NDI audio, brings it into the DAW, and then you can, on the outputs, and the buses, you can add this plugin, and then it goes back out to NDI, to either the vector or, frankly, anything that supports NDI. That's been the backbone of our audio workflow.
That's
and cool. I think that let's circle this back to John. Now, I know you've got the SDI boxes and everything. Do you have anything in the cloud?
Yes. My goodness, yes. Yeah, we have solutions in the cloud for MPEG transport stream, as well as 2110, and of course our Falcon, our TMP, our TMPS streaming live closed captioning coder, which has been exceptionally popular during the pandemic. You know, as I mentioned before, and our Alexi solution is primarily cloud-based. We do have an on-prem version, but that's, you know, primarily for just content that, you know, you really don't want to be in the cloud at all. You know, kind of if you're you know, doing some stuff of very secure nature, like, you know, some of the 3-letter folks in Washington, or, you know, maybe some corporate board minutes or what have you. But yeah, our Alexi automated captioning solutions purely cloud-based. That's one of the reasons, you know, I was really, you know, excited that we had all this, you know, kind of ready to go, and we were already moving into this kind of remote production direction when the COVID began, because we were ready to really kind of assist in terms of that accessibility.
All right. We actually have a couple comments coming in on the question channel. An anonymous attendee says Bird Dog Cloud supports Dante in the cloud. So that
No, it doesn't.
looks useful.
No,
Oh.
no, it doesn't.
There goes that.
There is no Dante in the cloud. Not without a tremendous amount of hoops. That's why NDI audio works the best for transporting audio around in the cloud right now.
We've tried, and that's been our experience as well.
All right. And then Shane writes, we've done 6 languages and captions using THU Player a year ago. He was wondering, does anyone here use THU Player? And he's asking, did THU Player lose that ability in terms of doing multiple languages of captions?
It does. I don't know if it does. I have used THU Player. We use video.js, and it does not. Don't believe it supports more than, I can't remember the language count, but THU, it did have that capability, and I'm not sure if it lost it.
Will SRT carry closed captioning?
Yes, and I can speak to that. Actually, we have that working really well. We just announced today we use Blackbird to do our live trimming, and we send our closed captions. We actually use a EEG captioner on the SDI program, turn it into SRT, and then basically use Nimble Streamer to pull the HLS. It maintains the captions the entire time, which is really nice for those of you that have to use a VTT file or like create stuff. And it just, if you're doing live captions, being able to have those inside of the HLS and then be able to do stuff with that is really cool. It can save a lot of time for some of you that have like really strenuous publishing workflows on trims.
And Jeff, do you have anything in terms of like managing captions from
Actually,
to the destination?
Not as far as captionings. Just recently we did an event we don't have to caption most of the live events that we are involved with LiveSports being a big part of it. But we do have the multi-language come up quite a bit. So we did a larger sales corporate type meeting with 13 languages. And so that was quite a challenge to get all those multiple languages to the cloud. We were using Zoom as a destination. So the Zoom was actually handling all the distribution. So each of those Zoom rooms got different audio depending on who was assigned to that room. So we had a room for Thai, we had a room for Spanish, we had a room for German, we had a room for on and down the line, but up to like 14 languages. And Hindi is actually very hard to understand whenever you don't speak it, by the way. But trying to pick out which language is in the right place and making sure that we had the right Zoom lined up with that. And there was multiple Zooms. So like there may have been 8,000 people that were watching all of that needed Spanish. And so we had multiple Zoom meetings logged in like that. And then we're letting Zoom actually do the captioning. And if you really want to see some of their live captioning it's interesting seeing a different language come in. So they're listening to Spanish and then it's live transcripting it to English, which is pretty amazing that that technology exists.
And another question that has come in, and I think it dovetails on this specifically. I know Teams is, getting a lot more use now. How about the multiple language capabilities of Microsoft Teams? Not that you necessarily want to see multiple languages at the same time, but have either of you tried to leverage the multiple language capability in Teams?
No, I mean here's for as a player, I wouldn't use it because then it can't go CDN side. But the thing about languages, I know Jeff was like being like, yeah, it's cute to use captions in Zoom. My clients that have captioning cannot use a robot or AI or Zoom to give their captions because literally, if it changes the word of one of my clients, what they're gonna say, bad things happen in our professional error and omission service kicks in. So captions are a serious game as far as like. I don't, getting into that AI thing, and I know Jeff was just being funny, but it's like, I don't see a lot of really, really high end broadcast productions utilizing AI. To John's point, the demand in captioners, we saw that where we had smaller companies we were going to use as captioners, and we had to go to some larger companies just because the demand for captioning has gotten so increased. And I do think Jeff's going to get loaded up when they change and all the sports people need captions. He's going to have so much business. It's going to be crazy because that's what it is. That's the difference. It's like politics. It's like you're starting to see how like TikTok and some of accessibility is becoming such a increase. The pandemic definitely accelerated the use of accessibility in a way that it just should have, like, so long ago, you guys. Like, seriously, like no one really took accessibility seriously, and it's kind of sad. And we need to increase our engagement in all of those tools.
All right. We had a question come in from Daniel, and I think Corey answered this a little bit, but in terms of controlling the cloud solutions, and I maybe Joe might have a particular preference for what software he uses, but Jeff, what type of software do you gravitate to when you are in one place? And I know you mentioned Elgato, but I'm sure there's like lots of different tools that you like to use in terms of managing a larger show.
Would you mean in hardware or in software? Because okay, in software, with Joe's in mind, using central control, we definitely use that. But also another thing you can't forget about is controlling those cloud machines. You need a good GUI representation. So you need to be able to see and accurately see the video quality of what you're controlling in the cloud. So we use Teradici, we use Parsec, where those are probably right about neck and neck. I like Teradici because it's easily deployable and it just works. Parsec is very inexpensive, but you have to work with it a little bit more to make it work well, and start up every time and things like that. And then probably behind that would be Nice, which is Amazon's own desktop remote control. And then probably right behind that would be TeamViewer, AnyDesk for just simple controls. But tie all that together, one of the main reasons for Teradici, I like it, is it actually supports USB transport. So you can connect a local, when you dial into your remote machine, you can connect a local USB device, just about any local USB device, and it'll just show up on the far side, which is quite useful for Stream Decks, for X keys, even MIDI controllers for that matter. Sometimes that works well. I personally prefer to go with central control, the software that Joe wrote, because it allows me to do multiple actions and multiple things with that software. I can control multiple computers, multiple softwares, all with one control surface. And that to me is worth the cost, and it's well worth the cost.
Yeah, I agree. And, I can also concur for shows that we've tried to do with Amazon. We tried Parsec, and a couple of us had difficulty getting it fully ironed out, and we each went with something else. And I'm not bad mouthing Parsec because I know people who use it and rely on it, intuitively, and we just, in the time that we had, because we're in Texas and we had an ice storm the week before, we didn't have the amount of pre-prep time that we really wanted to have with all the Amazon stuff, because we were busy trying to keep pipes from freezing, things like that. But let's another question came in. Are there any free NDI converter solutions, i.e. bringing in an RTMP stream into a computer and have a program that spits it back out the network as NDI? Corey, you can take it first.
Yeah, I mean, the Nimble Streamer. It's freeware. It's the best thing on the market. It is literally the best conversion software you can buy, and you can buy it because it's free. Hey, no, it's great. We built a product called Virtual Video Control Room. We're coming out with in June. That's basically built completely on Nimble Streamer. It turns everything. I love Sienna NDI, to Jeff's point, but like Nimble Streamer almost makes it completely obsolete in some ways, because it's just like once you send an SRT feed somewhere, and then you can then transcode NDI, pull HLS, pull RTMP, pull SRT, like that's all you need. You can then do all these like crazy things. It's like the promise of Teradek Core, but like the reality. So it's pretty cool.
Joe, what do you want to piggyback on that?
Yeah, for sure. Can you do that without the transcoder license? I don't know if you can do NDI unless you have the.
No, you need the transcoder license.
You're right. For free, what we actually use this quite a lot is, you might have heard of it. It's called OBS. So we'll take in RTMP streams and that will get outputted as NDI. And then we've got this script we've written so we can just fire up as many versions of the portable version of OBS to like do as many conversions as we need on, an EC2 instance. And the great benefit of that is that once it's NDI, it goes into the vMix stream and it's a vMix machine, and it's a lot less load on the CPU of that to decode the NDI than it would be to load it up with, say, 8 RTMP sources. And the bandwidth doesn't matter, right? Because once you're in EC2, these machines have 25 gigabits plus bandwidth.
The one thing I haven't heard any of you three mention very much of is WebRTC. Why is that?
I think because it's behind the scenes so much. Like no one is really out there just using WebRTC. We all are, but we don't directly interact with it in the same way we do, say, an NDI or an SRT. It's like if we're using MediaLux, Sienna Unite, or vMix Call, it's there, but it's just in the back. We'd say, oh, we're using MediaLux or we're using vMix Call rather than WebRTC as a protocol.
I mean, we had built this thing called LiveX Director that was basically RTMP. You make the GOP structure really small, you do all this crazy crap, then you have an EC2 instance transcoding with Red 5 and turning it back so that we could get another 250 milliseconds back to the director so that they could literally cut the show. So you basically cut that down to like 450 milliseconds is what we were getting. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what Joe said. It's like it's in this thing. It's in, Zoom took WebRTC and then made it this crazy powerhouse that it's way beyond WebRTC at this point. Let's be real, but it's an incredible technology. My problem has always been, for me personally, is Zoom is great. I'm on the Zoom. I got a Blackmagic Micro. I got some good lighting. I got this, I got some good audio. Joe looks great, but like, I can make a 6 meg SRT. I can make the New Year's Eve in Times Square worldwide webcast with 20 input feeds into the cloud, decode, take it from SDI, turn it into 6 megs, decode it, turn it back into SDI, turn it back into encoding into YouTube. And it doesn't look any different to me than when I was in a straight SDI baseband workflow. And that's crazy. And so that's where we are. We're at this place where like the quality is only this much, but the work it takes to get that quality is like still this much.
Yeah. And someone Nathan wrote in, if Zoom enables ISO NDI like Teams has, how likely would somebody be to abandon Teams?
Kind of depends.
Is anybody
on
using
how that
Teams?
works.
Is anybody really relying on Teams for multiple ingest of NDI sources?
We have tried, but the issue always comes down to is every NDI stream has the audio mix. The entire audio mix is there, so it's like for all the flexibility you gain, it's like if I can't mute someone as the person running the show, I can't use it. On the Zoom thing, I think Liminal, who make Zoom OSC, I'm sure people on this panel have used it. They're about to release Zoom NDI, which promises 8 1080p NDI streams out of Zoom. So if the audio works in the right way, I would be happy to try that.
Well, would you use Zoom OSC as opposed to OBS Ninja?
I think so. OBS Ninja, you're kind of dependent on using the browser input in vMix or whatever you're using to flip it, and that gets quite resource intensive if you've got any more than, maybe 2 or 3 callers.
In terms of making things easy for the callers, we're not talking like high-level production here. Let's talk like mid-level corporate. You're doing a simple show, and you need someone to call in. What is the tool of choice? Corey first.
Zoom. I mean, let's be real, you guys. Anybody saying differently is full of shit. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. It's the easiest thing. We're all on this right now. We used it. Literally, streaming media went from using, I'm not a product I'm not even going to talk about that I did a show with last year, to now using Zoom Webinar for a reason, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that's the first contribution. We send these pixel kits out. We're like, oh man, you're going to use this SRT app and you're going to look amazing. And then you get this asshole doctor who's like, you know what? I'm not using this crap. Or you get this politician and you end up falling back to Zoom.
What about you, Jeff?
I lean a different way. I use a lot of Zoom also, but I do lean more towards we've helped them develop it, and I really enjoy using Unite because we can get an individual audio and video feed from each caller, so I can mix video like I'm supposed to, instead of MX audio specifically. I can increase audio levels from each person. I could put EQ on them. I could do all these things that I would want to normally do in a traditional workflow. So Unite by Sienna in the processing engine is just a tremendously powerful tool. Another thing that they allow you to do within the processing engine is we actually have intercom back into their ears. And you could do that with Zooms. And we had 120 Zoom meetings running last weekend. So I understand Zoom very well. But whenever we are doing, and those are all in the cloud, whenever we're doing one-on-one talks, we would dedicate a virtual machine just to that one person on Zoom if we had to use Zoom. And then we would get that individual NDI feed and I'll do more with it as more of our times move forward. I would see we're going to see better tools than Zoom developed just for this purpose. Sure. And I think for sure it's one of those.
I just got to do, look, Joe did to me. I'm going to do to you, Jeff, what Joe did to me. Okay. I have a Sienna NDI license. It is $26,000 a year for one, just this processing engine and the regular, right? Here's the crazy thing. And I don't want to shit on Sienna NDI. I think it's a great product. I bought it last year, never used it in production because all of my clients do not like using the viewer and they don't think it's a consistent experience across the things. And that's why we kind of moved to best of breed. I like it as a product. I think it has a useful place, but it is very expensive. Let's be real, right? It's not for companies that don't have the wherewithal to spend a lot of money on remote as an upfront cost.
I agree with you that it is expensive to some people, but if it's if you need something that just works, and I would say, Corey, let me spend an hour with me.
I agree with you, and I've used it. I love it, dude. I love it.
So
I think it's great. I just never used it, and we ended up building our own product on Nimble to basically go, look, we don't need all this. We don't need to do nodal crap. I just need to send a bunch of freaking streams. And I need a bunch of people to be able to see them at the lowest latency possible. And I need to be able to replicate them across the things and do things with them. So like, I think Sienna's great, but it's like, you literally have to, every production, you have to be like, all right, I'm going to do all these things. Right. And then when it changes, you got to change. So I think it's a great tool. I'm not hating on it. I'm just like, if there's a thing that everybody knows how to use today in 2021, hands down, that product is Zoom. So like, as far as the user having the easiest thing to do in their life, that's it, right?
Yeah, okay, and that's what I'm saying exactly.
how then
bring
do
it
you
in.
deal
Grandmother
with
knows how to use Zoom.
And that's why we're
then, if
using
you're
it for
doing
a
a
lot of
professional
places.
show, how then do you deal with Zoom downgrading the signal? Because that's the one thing you can't really control is, you get people dialing in there, it's like
Boxes.
you can sit there and say,
Boxes,
I'm
Anthony,
paying for
boxes.
1080.
Small boxes. You put them in the smallest box you can. That's why esports has like a little head on there on the bottom, right? They're like, oh, okay, fine. You just want to see my game, right? Little boxes. Make your graphic designer do really tiny boxes. They look really good.
Yeah, because that was actually one of the questions. Like, I've done stuff on Zoom as well, and we paid for 1080 and everything, and people were viewing it and going, why is all the text blurry? Well, because Zoom had just dumbed it down anyway, and it's out of your hands at that point, and that's why there's a value to some other tools.
And that's exactly what I would say about it too, Anthony. Is exactly that. Is if you need to control your destiny, and I'm a big proponent of that. I want to have control of everything, and I agree with you, Corey, that there are other options out there, definitely less costly options, but to the average user out there, they're not that tinkerer in engineer type, that coder that you or I probably are, and
right.
so that makes it that much harder to recommend a product whenever you have to go into a code level or at least an XML level to tweak it and make it work versus something that you just draw the lines and make the pretty lines connect.
100%.
So Jeff had mentioned doing things in Sienna. Corey, I think what is your tool of choice for the actual mixing?
So for switching, we're like one of the biggest vMix dealers of all time for the last like 5 years or something. So like we're huge on vMix, and why that is I like TriCaster. I just never got into new tech legacy, what I call legacy, right? Everybody decides what legacy hole they're gonna fit in. We're kind of vMix and Blackmagic switchers. We now have the K-Rose system in our studio, which is Panasonic's new switcher. That's like it's pretty cool. It's like Ross Graphite or a high-end new tech. But it's Panasonic getting back into switching, which I don't know, you guys might not remember, but like for me, like they were some of the best hardware switchers for the money back in the day. So it's kind of cool. We can control our UE150s and our Technopoint Dolly system in the studio completely like remotely from this thing. I mean, it's crazy expensive. So it's like, but it's really cool. It's like, it's cool stuff that's going on, and it takes SRT and back to, here's something you guys probably haven't talked about in like a year. Like back in 2017, I thought we were going all SMPTE 2110, and here we are for the first time. LiveX has a 2110 solution. I have a 100 gig router in our LiveX studio, a Melanix or whatever it is. It's crazy. And somebody said, with COVID, didn't it change the whole thing? And I'm like, well, we're still going to IP, people. Like on-prem IP it's coming. I don't know if anybody else can afford it, but it's here.
Yeah, it seems a lot of the new deployments that we're doing seem to be an IP video. It seems to after saying this for the last 4 or 5 years, it finally seems to be here this time around. I will say we've seen kind of some evidence to that as well.
Yeah, and I agree as well. And I think, I don't necessarily want to say it was COVID, but I think in a sort of sideways kind of way, the fact that we were relying on the internet so much for doing video, then that sort of says, well, internet is IP, and so we could do that here too. It's not exactly the cause and effect, but if this works here, it could work there, type of thing.
COVID didn't hurt the appeal of IP video.
Yeah. People realize that, hey, wow, video over IP works for real.
So true.
It is a thing.
And Joe, just want to have you jump in here on that question as well. What is your tool du jour?
We're really big on vMix. We have been since the start of kind of our broadcast department. When it came to doing the 4K 60 stuff in the cloud, it was clear that we couldn't do what we needed without VizRTs. They've got some really clever way they manage the NDI stream. So if a source is on program, it's the full res 60 frames a second feed. If it's on preview, it loads in the 640 by 360 proxy resolution. Right. Yeah, the tiny little box in the corner. That's right. And it's because of that we were able to get the performance we needed to do our show. But I love vMix, and going back to the remote contribution thing, I really like vMix call. And even when we're doing shows in our vector, we'll just spin up a vMix and run 8 calls, send them out the NDI outputs and use it. I think it's a phenomenal deal because you pay for your vMix license and you have this essentially software as a service deal forever for basically free.
I'm 100% with you on vMix call. I just want to put one caveat because we did early on back into vMix call, and vMix does not, unfortunately, put enough special sauce around their transport stream. So if you have network congestion, you are going to die. You are going to just die. It's not going to work. And it's rare. It's rare that it happens. And it only happened to me and I had nothing to fall back on. So I always encourage everybody, always have a fallback, right? Yeah, it's our fallback, vMix call. Corey? Yes, we have. We've used MediaLooks.
I find, that seems a lot more tolerant to,
Well, yeah, they've built really cool sauce around. Yeah, they built the sauce. Yeah. That's where SRT, it's like, oh, we're not going to use forward error correction. We're going to use ARQ. And Zoom right now, right? They're doing all this sauce around the transport protocols to get through the network. And unfortunately, that's a vMix call's Achilles heel.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm looking at my counter. I got 4 minutes left. I want you each to take a minute and tell me, what are we going to see next year? What's the big thing we're going to see next year? Corey, you go first.
I'm the worst at this because I always think, I thought we were going to have SMPTE 2110 cameras in 2017. I'm terrible. I'm worthless at this. I don't know. To Jeff's point, more ways to send and receive multiple signals, languages, captioning, data, control over the internet in ways that are more reliable, faster, and cheaper. How's that?
That's vague enough. Thank you. John, what are we going to see from you guys next year?
I think you're going to see further improvement in terms of our ASR technology, and really what can only be termed as human assisted speech recognition. So kind of a layer above what we have now in place with Lexi. So that's something we're really excited about. And hopefully a true multi-language captioning solution.
All right, Joe DeMax, tell me, what are we going to see next year? What is going to be the big thing we're talking about next year?
I guess for me, it's more evolution. There's things I'd like to be able to do today that I can't because, we don't have fast enough computers or fast enough networks. Maybe I want to do 3840 by 3840 video for VR. I can't really do that right now. But what you've got to take is that these markets, IP, graphics cards, they're being driven by much bigger markets than ours. And that's what keeps pushing this forward. And that's what I find really exciting about the switch to remote production and software, is that we're now not talking about how many gates can we get on an FPGA. It's we just know things are going to get faster. And maybe next year I can do 8K, 120 frames a second video. So just more, faster, better. I will never be happy, Anthony, is the short answer to your question.
8K over SRT. Got it. Okay. Jeff, tell me, what do you see next year? Or is he still again? I think he's still again. I'm going to throw in a comment because we still got a minute before they jump in, before Eric jumps in. I think the audiences are getting smarter. They're getting savvier. They've seen great television, then they've seen crappy Zoom, but now I think they really want to see whatever it is.
I would see better versions of. Oh, did I die?
You did not die. Keep going.
Maybe he did.
Please stand by. He's got a great slide. I
wanted to hear what he had to say because that guy's mind is great. I love it. He makes it. That guy Jeff is legit as hell. He is doing the real deal. The hero's work for sports.
Okay, you've got the floor, guys. Jeff. What do we see next year?
Next year, more distributed production, even more so than we've already seen, and that production is going to go into the cloud. there will be master controls in the cloud. You will not even think about it because the transport's going to get the video there, and you're just going to work like you're working at your office, but it's all going to be in the cloud. No more gear on the ground, or less gear on the ground. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
Still got to be some cameras somewhere.
I hope you're right, because I'm banking on that, Jeff.
Absolutely.
All righty, Eric.
Hello. The thing I hate about these production focused panels is that y'all are so just dispassionate about everything. You just really don't care. You don't get excited about anything. No, that was great. Thank you so much, Anthony and Corey and Joe and John and Jeff, for a great conversation. And that will wrap up this panel. We will be back in a little over a half an hour with Ben Ratner talking about how to podcast like a pro. So thanks again to EEG Enterprises for sponsoring this panel. And thank you to Signiant for sponsoring all of Streaming Media East Connect.
When the director calls action.
And action.
When the game is on.
Pick it up, it's good.
Or it's time to save the universe again. Media Shuttle is there. Trusted by more than 25,000 media companies, Media Shuttle delivers, making it easy and secure to send any size file anywhere fast. The journey begins with Media Shuttle portals, customized and branded for any project and designed to be so easy, your end users will love it. All while giving operations teams complete control through a simple yet powerful admin interface. Add users, set permissions, customize file delivery specs, and report on all activity. Blast off with proprietary acceleration technology. Media Shuttle moves your content anywhere in the internet-connected world at hyper speeds. Along the way, your files are protected. Our commitment to enterprise-grade security has made Media Shuttle a preferred tool with Hollywood studios, major sports leagues, broadcasters, and more. With Media Shuttle, your files are never handed over to Signiant. File movement is orchestrated between the end user's workstation and your storage, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Your IT team simply provisions your storage, connecting it to the Media Shuttle cloud service, and Signiant handles the rest. Get started on your Media Shuttle journey today, a journey without limits.